Welcome to the Pit Stop Insider podcast, hosted by Max Velocity, where we dive deep into the world of Formula One. Today, we're discussing the recent news that F1 teams have managed to avoid penalties for pit crew infringements at the Abu Dhabi GP. Now, this is a topic that has had fans buzzing, so let's get into it. You know, penalties in F1 can be a real game changer. They can determine the outcome of a race and sometimes even the championship itself. So, when we hear that teams have managed to avoid penalties, it raises some eyebrows. Now, before we jump to any conclusions, let's break down what happened in Abu Dhabi. It appears that a number of teams were found to have violated the pit crew regulations during the race. These infringements ranged from unsafe releases to equipment not being properly secured. And let me tell you folks, these are serious infractions that can have serious consequences. But here's the interesting part. No penalties were handed out. Now, this may come as a surprise to some, but let's take a step back and look at the bigger picture. F1 is a highly competitive sport, and teams are constantly pushing the limits to gain an advantage. Mistakes happen, and sometimes it's not a matter of intentional cheating, but rather human error. Now, before you start thinking that this is a case of favoritism or teams getting away with breaking the rules, let's consider a few things. First of all, the FIA, the governing body of F1, has a responsibility to enforce the rules, but they also need to ensure a fair and balanced competition. So, when it comes to penalizing teams, they have to strike a delicate balance. Secondly, let's not forget that F1 is a highly complex and technical sport. Teams operate under immense pressure, with split-second decisions being made on the pit wall. And sometimes, in the heat of the moment, mistakes can happen. So it's important to understand that teams are not intentionally breaking the rules, but rather they are pushing the boundaries in pursuit of victory. Now, I'm not saying that we should turn a blind eye to these infringements. The rules are in place for a reason, and safety should always be the top priority. But we also need to be mindful of the context in which these incidents occur. So, to wrap it up, folks, it's important to remember that F1 is a sport that operates at the cutting edge of technology and human performance. Mistakes will happen, and it's up to the FIA to strike a balance between enforcing the rules and ensuring a fair competition. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Pit Stop Insider podcast. I hope you enjoyed our discussion on the recent pit crew infringements at the Abu Dhabi GP. Remember, this podcast was co-produced by Daniel Aronoff and Mogul Media AI. Stay tuned for more thought-provoking insights into the world of Formula One.